motherfucker!
How's it going, everyone? This is the 6 Mil Show. I am Callsign Bambi, part of Team Spartan, and I am joined today by Stitch, Grimlock, and Callsign Friendly Fire. And today's topic is something that's been, I guess, talked about quite a bit in the past couple of weeks, particularly amongst our group. FPS versus Joules versus rate of fire. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a bit of a key difference between FPS and Joules, and hopefully I can articulate that a little bit better. But before I do, does everyone want to say hello and introduce yourselves? Say hi.
Hello.
Hello. That'll be Stitch, I believe.
Yes.
Stitch, you actually haven't been on this podcast before, so I always give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves, tell them how they got started on Airsoft and how long they've been playing for, and what kind of game style you enjoy playing. So go ahead and do it if you feel like you want to.
Yes, I'm Stitch. I originally done Airsoft when I was about 15, gave it a go, went for a friend's birthday and fell in love with it then. Didn't really play much for years, and then past like 2 years I kind of got into it, and now I'm playing as regular as I can, joined Team Spartan, and smashing it. Favourite pastime is definitely CQB, definitely prefer that.
You like the up close and personal stuff. Fair enough.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of us like playing a bit of CQB. I think Grimlock's more of a woodland player, to be honest, if I'm correct.
That's true. I am a. That comes back to me being in the army for so long, but I don't mind a bit of CQB. You know, starting to get more and more.
If you want to interject, you can interject. Go ahead.
My internet failed. Can you start the whole thing again, please? Just so I can. I'm kidding. No, but the internet did fail. So if you realised I was gone, I'm back.
Oh, we didn't know you're gone, so it's okay.
Story of my life, really.
Yeah,
is.
It really is. All right, so topic for discussion is FPS versus Joules versus rate of fire. Now, I'm just going to do a quick, like I said, 5-minute spiel about the difference between FPS and Joules. Rate of fire is pretty simple. Now, as we all know, as airsofters, FPS differs with the weight of BB. So if you're using a lighter BB, if your rift does 330 on twos, if you go to 2.8, it's going to drop significantly in feet per second. Where Joules is considered, it's the amount of kinetic energy that gets transferred to the BB when you pull the trigger. So even if you're using a 0.2 or a 0.28, the amount of energy in flight is going to be the same. And the reason for that and the reason people are arguing between whether you should measure on Joules or whether you should measure on SPS is the energy transferred on impact. So say, would I be right in thinking that the average engagement, even in woodland, is about 20 feet? Would you say that would be the right amount of distance?
Sounds about right.
Okay, so say you're using a 0.28 gram BB on a 1.5 joule gun at 20 foot. You're going to feel that, but at the same time, you're going to feel less of an impact at a 1.5 joule gun at 20 feet with a 0.2. So the argument is that measuring at joules gives a much more accurate representation of whether your weapon, your riff, is going to cause damage or not. And that's the point of conversation I want to start off on. I mean, what based on that, what would you guys say would be the preferable way to measure? Because I've only ever really experienced feet per second myself.
Personally, I'm with you. I've only really ever experienced the FPS, feet per second.
And would you say that is an accurate description gives a more accurate description of how powerful a riff is, or would Joules be more accurate?
Personally, I mean, like I say, that's all I've ever known. So to me, that's how accurate I have come to know it. I don't know about the other lads, though. I would say Friendly or Stitch. I mean, they can weigh in now. I'm just going to shut up for the let them.
I mean, I'd say in fairness, FPS, it gives us a better understanding of our riffs, but saying that, Joules is a little bit more relevant because with FPS, you've got the hassle of, say you're running exclusively 0.25s in all your weapons. You rock up to the chrono and you've got to stack a few twos in there. That's a hassle for the marshals. It holds everyone up. It's a hassle for you. If you're measuring joules, then you can simply, if you need to, you don't really need to, do you state the weight of the BB, take a couple of shots. Joules will read out whether it's hot or not, and then game on. Having said that, though, aren't super practical, and they're not straight down the line. Instead, you can have an energy output that doesn't represent, I think, the FPS. I'm not entirely too sure how it works. And in addition to that, a lot of people don't know the conversion rates of FPS to joules. So if they're measuring on joules, they might look at it and think, oh yeah, that 1.3, that seems fine. Whereas if that's I don't know, CQB from a pistol, that might be a bit too hot. I don't know, it depends on the site rules. But I think I recall going to one site where they measured in joules, and I get the impression they didn't really know what they were looking at. It was just a case of, yeah, that's fine, keep going. So FPS is a clear indication, but comes with a lot of hassle. I think joules would work better if people understood the conversions of their weapons. I suppose, if it's a HPA as well, it will also affect the energy. I'm not really sure, because as it's already been stated, a lot of us are used to FPS.
Yeah, well, the thing you have to take into account from what just playing Airsoft is not only the weight of the BB when it comes to FPS, because that's another thing that's really difficult to calculate, because if you upgrade your RIF, for example, your RIF could be shooting 330 on twos out of the box. You upgrade it to get right to the cusp. A 2.8 could have a very marginal difference in FPS if you've upgraded your RIF, so you could still be hot in that point. But at the same time, unless all RIFs are created equal and they all have the same joule output, you're going to have a problem there as well, because everyone's RIF is different. And like you said, Friendly Fire, that the fact is, I've just lost my trail of thought though. The whole point is everyone knows what FPS is, and not a lot of people know what the joule conversion is. Not to mention the fact you've got other factors in as well: the quality of the BB, the weight of the BB, the conditions, whether you're playing outdoors, wind, distance, drop off, etc., etc. You can measure in joules, but at the same time, the impact at distance is going to be less because it's travelled further, and the air resistant removes that energy out as well. So do you measure joules and distance, or do you stick with FPS? I think that's where the key argument is. I think for me, not only being used to FPS, but you can actually gauge better how it's going to affect impact and distance and the safety at distance as well. I don't know about you guys. That's my trail of thought on that. And I have silence.
No, sorry. My internet just kind of went flickery again.
All right.
The thing as well, on top of that, is when you buy a RIF, or you're scrolling through, whichever popular website you use to get your weapons from, your armory, a lot of them will sort of tally as to what the FPS is when you're looking at. It comes across as FPS reads that such and such fired on 0.2s. I mean, that is the standard across the entire.
Yeah, it does seem like an industry standard at the moment. I mean, the reason I really wanted to discuss this as a topic is because when me and Grimlock went to Halo Mill, the marshal pretty much explained that what he believes is that sites are going to start going to joules rather than FPS to chrono guns. Now, the thing I've always experienced is, as you well know, Friendly Fire, Stitch, Grimlock, that not all chronos are created equal either. So I've gone to sites where I can use my breacher on red gas, and then I've been told on another site I can't use it because it's too hot. Not because it's over the FPS limit. It's because the chrono says it is. So there's a lot of factors involved with FPS and joule conversion, which I think really needs to be looked at. But at the moment, because we're used to the FPS conversion, that is, and it's industry standard. I think that's probably where we need to stick with until, as you said, Friendly Fire, people get to know their guns better. I think that's the best thing to say.
Yeah,
But
look, getting to know your guns, it's all subjective, isn't it?
yeah,
You know, somebody might play every weekend, whereas another person might play every couple of months. You know, maybe they've got other commitments, family, work, whatever it may be. So the familiarity with your gun is not only using it,
well, you've
but
got
understanding it, understanding the hop up, the sears, understanding how it works,
yeah,
what
the
will make it work
overpressure and everything
better.
like that. Yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah, for sure.
you've got wear and tear. I mean, even when you, for example, I the use of CO2 or gas mags. You know, the more rounds you put through without recharging the magazine with gas or CO2, the less of an impact you're going to have as well. So it's a very interesting, complicated subject that we're probably not going to answer too much in this topic. I want to ask Stitch and Grimlock's opinion on this because we've kind of taken over the conversation a little bit. Grimlock,
Well, no.
go on.
Well, Friendly Fire makes very valid points, and obviously he's very well educated in the Joules compared to the likes of myself. I mean, I've been playing for 20 odd years, 21 years this year, and to be honest, going back to the marshals of Halo Mail, I mean, fantastic site, fantastic marshals.
Yeah.
I personally don't believe that all sites are going to go across FPS because, I mean, if they haven't changed to Joules or anything in the past 20 years, why would they do so now?
A fair, valid point. Yeah, I mean, you've obviously got greater experience over the decades, so to speak, of playing
All right, back in there.
Back in
There's
there.
a reason I'm called Grimlock because I'm as old as a dinosaur.
Old as a dinosaur, just as cranky. Yeah.
Damn straight.
So we've kind of covered the topic a little bit. Stitch, you haven't really said much, mate. What's your opinion on the whole FPS versus Joules subject?
I'm pretty much the same area as Grim, really. It's more I'm just used to FPS, but there are a lot of issues with both. On terms of you can play around, as Friendly Fire was saying, to get to know your gun, you've got to get to know it, play regularly, know the internals, know how it works. But then there are going to be a lot of people that just throw random parts in. It's going to go willy nilly, and sometimes they're not always as accurate. It's like there's one, like I've heard a few times. Me personally, I've never bothered with Joules, so I don't understand it 100%. But from what I've heard, like there is situations where, on terms of Joules, it will creep a lot as well and fluctuate depending on what it is, especially more towards bolt action.
Yeah.
Bolt action rifles tend to fluctuate on Joules heavily. Again, this is just what I've been told in the past or whatever, but
Well, I think you're
as
probably,
far as I'm aware,
probably
this
right.
is how it works.
Yeah,
If I can just dive in there a sec, guys. Now, there's a term that's been thrown around that a lot of people may not be overly well versed in. Dual.
Say that again. Dual creep. Is that it?
Yeah. Has anyone heard of the term dual creep?
Yeah, I have actually. Now that you mention it, yeah.
Now, personally, like Stitch, I'm not as well versed in Joules, obviously, because FPS has been all I've known in the 20 odd years I've played. So, but if I'm going to look at Rick more for this one, of Friendly Fire, because he obviously, like I say, he's more well versed in this. Does he know and understand this term dual creep, and what does it entail?
Do you know what, dual creep? I don't think I've heard of it before, but it sounds like something that is quite commonplace. I'm going to take an educated guess whilst one of you Google this, because I'm not.
I'm
entirely
googling
sure.
it right now. Go on.
Good stuff, right? I would educate that. Well, I say take an educated guess that that dual is an infrequent and irregular increase of energy, probably sort of as a rift gets worn in a little bit. So perhaps the is reduced as it's going down as parts wear out, as playtime continues. You might swap out a battery and yet still all the other components are quite hot. The barrel's quite warm. you might find that the energy output would slowly but surely increase. Air of the gun will reflect that. So I know educated guess.
You're not
might
far
be what it
off.
is. I'm
You're
not
actually not
100%.
far off,
I've
right?
not heard that term before. Hey,
Here's what it is, right? Joule creep is caused by over volume. That is the amount of air needed to push the projectile, the light BB, through the barrel. So basically, as your parts wear out, as your hop gets bedded in, as your spring gets less tense in your bolt action, you're going to need more air to push the BB out, meaning more energy is going to go into the BB. So you could measure at joules when you first get your riff or your bolt action out of your gun, out of your box, sorry, at, I don't know, 1.2 joules, which is, say, site legal. But over time, the more you use it, if you don't maintain it, you don't change out parts, it's going to go up and up and up and up to the point where you won't be able to use it on a site, even with lower BBs. And it's according to this, it happens a lot more with bolt action rifles, HPA, where you need pressure to push out the BB, and gas and CO2. So there you go. You weren't far off. You weren't far off what it was, and that's a valid point. I'm glad you brought that up, Grimlock, because that's not something.
Shouldn't have said that as an educated guess.
Yeah,
well done there, Rick. Well done.
Yeah. So
Honestly,
apparently,
respect with you, mate.
the dangers of Joule creep, according to the latest updates, the Policing and Crime Act puts a very specific limit on airsoft weapons. Anything found to be over this limit is no longer classed as an airsoft weapon. Basically, you could get an illegal firearm in an airsoft with Joule creep at some point if you don't maintain your weapon, don't maintain it properly, or don't clean it, or don't change out the parts.
That's quite a scary thought as well. Thinking about.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting thought that maybe, in the grand scheme of things, sticking with FPS is a safer way of doing it. Because if you go over the FPS, you know you can't play. I think rather than the energy transferred into the riff, that's probably. We're obviously. I'm not saying we've answered the question indefinitely, but I think it's an interesting thing to think about, that the dangers of Joule creep.
You mentioned before that when Joule creep does occur, you could potentially be entering a site with an illegal firearm.
Yeah.
Now, the rule of thumb when it comes to an offensive weapon, particularly those that project some sort of missile, is if it's strong enough to pierce the skin, it's classed as an offensive weapon. It's classed as an illegal firearm, depends on what nature of a vehicle that's projected the missile itself. And I think we've all played a game where somebody's maybe fired a little bit too close or a little bit too hot, and it's effectively pierced our skin. And we wear those wounds with a bit of pride. That just kind of emphasizes how commonplace this is. I'm sure we've all been responsible for pulling the trigger on someone that maybe might knock out a tooth or might pierce the skin a little bit.
Yeah,
guilty.
Belt on someone.
Yeah.
So I suppose it depends on the degree of how hot it is and how much that Joule creep would impact the riff, and
Yeah, I mean,
basically how frequently it's going to pierce skin.
Yeah, I mean, even through clothing, you can get some pretty nasty blood whelps on your arms, especially up at close range. No, I mean, it's part of the game. We all accept it. We all sign the waivers. We know it's going to happen. I mean, you guys are seeing my arms at the end of a CQB session. I look like I've got freaking scabies, but it's and that's because I'm crap. I still I'd say it before you guys did.
Don't worry, Carl. If you were skinny, you'd look like a heroin addict.
Yeah, that's true enough. But yeah, it's. I think we're more leaning on to the point that FPS should be the standard and should maintain it. I think I'm more inclined. See, when I first started thinking about this topic for this particular episode, I thought Joules was probably a better way of doing it. But talking to you guys, getting you guys involved, and actually going through it, FPS does sound like the best way of doing it. It's not perfect by a long shot because, like I said, a lot of sight chronos are crap or they're not consistent, and we've all had weapons where we've played on one site and it's been fine, and then we go to another site and we haven't been able to use it. That's happened to me quite a bit lately, which has been a bit annoying.
It's happened to me too. Recently at the jail last year, concerning me KSG.
I remember that. Yeah. I mean, they wouldn't let me use my breacher, and I normally use red gas on it, which has been fine at other sites.
So they wouldn't let you use your breacher the last time you went, but the time before you were using it perfectly fine.
Yeah, but I was using red gas the time before, and then the time after, still on red gas, I downgrade to green gas. That's another thing.
Yeah, so
the type of gas
I had red in my KSG.
Yeah.
So there's straight away we know not to put the red gas in.
Yeah.
And put green gas.
Yeah. So I mean, so from our point of view, then, the PSI through pounds per square inch through HPA, the CO2 bulbs losing pressure as it gets dispensed, gas losing pressure, the different gases increasing FPS, increasing Joule output and Joule creep. I think we've come to a fairly standard consensus between us. At least changed my mind that FPS is probably the better way of doing it. If it's not perfect, it's the best way to do it. I don't know about you guys.
On that note, have you actually tried to buy a chronograph from any sort of or Amazon? It's quite difficult to find a chronograph that actually reads in FPS. Personally, I can only come across those that read in joules and rate of fire. I don't know if anyone else has any other experience.
I haven't looked for one. No.
I've got a friend who has a chronograph which will read in FPS. I mean, you'll see a lot of sites actually do have ones which will have FPS written to it. Now, whether or not it's just down to where we're shopping or not, I don't know. However, I've got a friend, there, he's got himself a chronograph. In fact, I've got a couple of friends with chronographs, and all theirs read in FPS. What I'll do after the show is I'll contact them and ask them where they got them.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. Helping each other out, even when we're all miles apart in this COVID-19 lockdown. All right, so let's move on to the third part.
Rate of fire, rate of fire, rate of fire, rate of fire.
Yeah, the rate of fire.
Rate of fire, rate of fire, rate of fire.
Right.
That was me impression of those speed soften guns that you see, because they some of them do have silly rates.
Yeah, this is more down to the way we like to, how the sites we've experienced. I think more than anything else. I personally believe, and I think we're all of the same mind, but correct me if I'm wrong, that it doesn't matter. It's great having a riff that can do 26.7 rounds a second. I had a great fun having a little go of the one down south when I was visiting Friendly Fire for our weekend. That didn't happen. Anyway.
By the way, don't forget me patch next time.
I've got them in my bag, so when we're out of this lockdown, I'll hand them out.
Awesome.
Sweet.
So there's another question that we'll come to after this. Of obviously everything's on lockdown as well.
Oh yeah,
getting out,
keeping your skills up and everything like that.
I expect everyone to be perfect at CQB by the time this lockdown is over, because you should all have cleared your house at least once every day.
Once every day, yeah. Get strapped and have a little play around the house, yeah.
Or just sleep in your kit.
Basically, yeah.
Basically,
me and Friendly Fire are used to doing that.
Mate, I've got my my Aries striker sort of on standby next to a go bag. It's ready.
Love it.
No, I'm not even joking. I'll send you a picture of it.
That's brilliant. I love it.
Right, I know what I'm doing.
You know, you're getting yourself a freaking survival kit next to the door, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna need like a baby carrier to throw Jack.
Oh man, throw Jack into. Okay, rate of fire. Okay, so our experience. I mean, I've fired quite a few full auto riffs that are pretty shit hot. And they've got hair triggers and speed triggers and everything like that, and they're great fun on a range. But from my personal experience and my personal way of playing, you don't need them. You really don't need something that can spit out 18 rounds a second or 20 rounds a second or 30 rounds a second. If you're that kind of person, you're out to hurt someone, I think is where my opinion is. we will mention he who will not be mentioned. For the most part, you think of like the double tap triggers, semi-auto going crazy, the high torque motors, the speed gears, whatever you want to call them. You always associate that.
You've got a point to them. I mean, like between me and say a speed softer, and both of us on single shot coming to pull the trigger, he's going to get the round down first. But by the time that round's probably hit me, my round's already heading towards him and is going to hit him. So we're going to end up trading. So is it worth it for that? I mean, is he able to put that round down quick enough that I'm not able to pull the trigger yet? You know, well, is he going to be able to hit me in that split second?
That's the point. It's like you know you're going to, for the most part, rate of fire isn't going to matter in a skirmish situation or even in a milsim situation, unless I don't even know like understands in a competition kind of setting. You know what I mean? Why you would need to be able to freaking pound out 20 rounds a second on semi-auto as well. I don't know. I've never put much stoke on.
Is it a possible there? Not so much there, because obviously we don't want to be. I mean, again, we don't want to alienate anyone in the show. No. It's obvious that we've all got our playstyle, and it's not Speedsoft. And Speedsoft is something that's gotten quite big lately. Even my nephew wanted to get into it. I'm going to disown him as my nephew. But it's like, I can understand. I mean, when you see the old paintball tournaments.
You said the P word.
Someone's got to.
I'm trying to avoid saying it when I was doing my bit a minute ago.
Anyway, it's like coming back to their tournaments. I mean, I can see there being proper Speedsoft tournaments being a thing in the future, a bit more. I think that'd be great for them. But it's when their full-on Speedsoft style of play goes to a regular skirmish day, which I think problems can arise, because you've got kids playing, you've got people who you're just out for a bit of fun, you've got the mill simmers who will come out and do their day's battle simming and the likes.
Yeah.
So it's all different styles of play thrown into one. However, a lot of time I find it can be their attitude that goes along with it. They seem very, very. I don't think there's any way of me really putting this without being offensive, and it seems
it's like the higher your rate of fire, the bigger douche you are. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it's like oh yeah, I've got a Desert Eagle. So yeah, Desert Eagle to me is for the man with the tiny penis. Okay, people might like Desert Eagles. They may have the big penis.
Yes.
The gun. They need the gun to match this size, but it's on that as well. It's like I've seen a lot lately of Speedsofters causing problems. That video recently of those 3 young kids in America.
Oh yeah, shooting the crap out of that guy.
Yeah, and they just they brush off the marshals' reprimands, and it's like, hang on, the marshals are there for everyone's
safety. Yeah.
Now, as a marshal myself and yourself, as marshals ourselves, when we go out to help marshal the bomb-ups games, just like the only people I've rarely ever had to speak to has been those with the silly high rates of fire.
Yeah, the guys who hold down the trigger and run thinking they're hitting everything.
Yeah. Now we all know someone like that who will walk along and just spray his entire 1,000 round box mag.
There's always one.
There's always one.
Oh yeah, it's going to happen no matter what. It's going to happen. It's been like that since day one.
Can I just point out?
Go on. Sorry, say that again.
No, I was just saying, there's always one. I'm starting to take this a bit personally over here.
So you should.
No, that's friendly fire.
Name. Just say it.
Well, Rick's a speed softer.
Yeah. He's
Ew, gross.
I'll
Yeah,
admit
and
to
you're
being a
related
little
to
bit
him, Carl.
bi-curious, but not so much anymore.
He's our budget player. That's what I'm going to say. He's our budget
Well,
player.
that's it. And Speedsoft costs a lot of cake. You got to invest quite a bit to find out
Okay.
that it's absolute gash, and you don't want to do it that way.
No, I think.
In all honesty, I am not fast enough to be a speed softer anyway.
No, I don't
That's
think.
why I enjoy my style of play, which is more out in the woodland, humping the boonies, bit of kit on you, laying an ambush, get it.
I think
Yeah, old school toy soldier stuff.
Yeah, I think it's the same.
Great.
I think the whole point is that if you can't do it in 2 or 3 rounds, don't do it at all. I think that's my attitude. It's like, I'm not a great shot. I'm by far not a great shot. And I usually play on semi-auto, whether I'm outside or indoors anyway. So it's never a big thing for me having a
And
rift that can
I
fire.
always tend to roll as more of a fire support, and
Yeah.
I'll lay a few bases of suppressive down, which allows other players to get into their positions and take the kills.
I suppose
for me, it's not about
well, we're coming from a different attitude, really, aren't we? I think the way we play.
True. I mean, I suppose it would be good at some point to maybe get someone in here amongst us who we know who does speed soft, who we are on good terms, and they can then explain more on this. I mean, again, it's like knowing is half the battle, isn't it? I suppose if we understood better, we may not have this, say, bias that we.
Yeah, that we have. I totally agree. I mean, I think it goes to the point, I think the Marshal at Halo Mail mentioned that you have to adapt your play style to the people you're playing with. So if you go to a speedball site, you adapt to play speedball. If speedsofters go to a skirmish site or a skirmish day, they need to adapt to the bulk of the players. It doesn't mean they don't have to. They need to sit back.
I also believe it's adapt to the game site as well.
Yeah, that's my point as well. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to change the way you play. You can still run ahead in front of everyone and try and.
No, that's what we use the young rentals for. They like to get cartwheel everywhere and spray and pray, and whilst all us old uns walk up behind, and then we just snipe all the kills, and they're all like, "Oh, you're really good." It's like, nah.
Come on, proverbial hands up if you actually did all right as a rental player. Come on, you did.
Well, yeah, we didn't do too bad, actually. I don't think we did.
Years ago, Grimlock, when you started playing and you first picked up that broken rental, like you might have had issues with, you got a fair few kills.
I have actually only ever been a rental once. In my entire Airsoft career, I've only rented once. And after the first game, there was a lad who had his own Benelli M3 shotgun. And there was TM1s, he'd just come onto the market, and he was not enjoying himself. And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's your first time." I got chatting to him, and we ended up swapping my rental gun for his actual gun, and then obviously passing it back at the end of the day. So, but all I had was like one shot shell of like 10 shots with in those shot shells.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I had a fantastic day, and so I wasn't even a rental for the full day.
He was half a rental.
And then the second time I went actually proper airsofting, I mean, I'd already had my own gun. I mean, that was it. Me Minimi was just me go-to, and that's another reason why I always seem to run a lot more fire support, because I'm just so locked into that mindset of just, let's put up a few rounds down, keep the heads down, and let the riflemen do their job.
Yeah, I think you got a fair point. I mean, you are right that when we're talking about rate of fire, we are talking from a completely different mindset to someone who likes the whole dual chap triggers, the high speed motors and that type of thing, and takes great enjoyment of being able to mag dump someone for no apparent reason than to be...
From a generic point of view, though, when it comes to rate of fire, and I'm going to liken this as in the chat or those who be listening to the podcast in the future who play computer games, rate of fire, in my opinion, is a perk of the gun, not a perk of the game or a perk of the play. It's something interesting and fun that the gun can do in itself, and on a range, it is great fun to see how quickly you can empty a magazine to run it through a chrono and say you're firing 20 shots every 5.6 seconds. It's a great feeling to know that if someone isn't taking their hits all day and they're still not doing it. You could just get a little bit closer, switch to full auto, and watch them actually take a hit for once during the entire game.
Unless you're in a CQB site with a single shot
That
on.
is the
Always
perk
fun.
of the of the gun. That doesn't enhance the game, and I think really,
I don't even think it enhances the player. I think it as well. It may also. I mean, this again at the risk of alienating or upsetting anyone listening. It's like, is it down to, is that down to their lack of skill?
Well, that's just it. I mean, does being able to spray a line of BBs at a moving target, does that make you a better player? Does that improve how you play, or maybe taking the
No, as a former support gunner, Airsoft, and because obviously I've had the minimies and all that, and I don't use I don't really use me minimies anymore because obviously I just go for double taps and the likes now.
Yeah,
it's it's even different again. I mean, for me it was suppress them so we could get someone up there who could do that. Now the question is, and obviously because we don't play that play style, is that part of the play style? Are they there to suppress whilst one of their other guys sneakily gets around behind us and pops us from behind?
Well, this is the other thing. A lot of the stuff you see of high rate of fire stuff on the interwebs is people being douches with high rate of fire.
Well, yeah, you're going to see. I mean, bad press will always come out on top over good
press. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I think like with your terms when it comes to rate of fire, friendly fire is absolutely right. It's good to know you've got it. It's a great feeling having a fast motor, high torque motor, good decent gears, etc., in your riff helps with rate of fire, but it also helps other aspects of the gun like accuracy, distance, everything like that.
Well, yeah. Going back to Moa with the XM177, that's got a pretty quite a higher rate of fire than most of my weapons. And on that last game, we were I put a couple of short bursts up high, and he dropped in on top of the enemy playing team.
Yeah,
and I hit a few. Now it was unintentional; it was just a pure suppress move, but got lucky.
I think So I think it's safe to say then that there's a bit of bad press with high rate of fire. Friendly fire is right in the fact that it's good to know your weapon can do it and affects other things. It's also
I think I was just stepping on your point before. If you can't do it in 2 to 3 rounds, don't do it at all.
Well, there's that as well.
That's very true.
I'm from the school of thought, especially playing with you guys, is that if you can't do it 2 or 3 rounds, you've missed your target. He's gone. They're not there anymore anyway. Then of course you've got the team element of it.
You can't do it in 2 or 3 rounds. Those 2 or 3 rounds have landed near enough by them, so you know you're going to be shooting at them.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be out the way. Then there's the whole team scenario. Do you set up a team like a proper fire team? Do you have a support gunner? A couple of riflemen, a guy with a marksman rifle. If you want to do it like the bold battle sim way of it. And then there's the whole, what is your play style? Do you like running around super fast, getting up front and just firing a load of rounds down range? What site are you playing at? Indoors, outdoors? Do they allow that kind of play, etc., etc.?
Well, yeah, you'll have seen that my play style changes every time we go out. I take on a different stance. I mean, when we went to the armory, I ended up getting in round behind the enemy. I popped out on their spawn points, but obviously I've said to myself, I can't stand here and shoot them because that's just unsportsmanlike. So I dropped back to where they were just on the front line to put suppressing down on the case where you and Shadow were.
Yeah, the guy with the drum mag.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's another one. It's like drum mags as well. It's like I see a lot of the the high rate of fire with a drum mag.
Yeah, or like you've got HVA pistols with extended mags or M4 mags or drum mags on. You're like, yeah. I mean, seriously speaking, if you're playing CQB or outdoors, how many rounds do you? All right, you don't have to reload, but realistically, how many people are you gonna pop at before you? You're always going to be behind cover before you reload anyway, etc., etc. I guess ultimately it is to want of trying to appease people. It's how you want to play, but you have to be aware of who you're playing with, who you're playing against, and my experiences is when you're playing with skirmishers like ourselves or milsimmers, they don't take any shit. Your attitude, if your attitude stinks, you'll know about it. But at the same time, if I ever went to play Speedsoft or Speedball tournament, I'd have to understand that, you know, I'm in their environment and I'd have to change. Not my attitude, I wouldn't be a douche, but, you know, it depends. Like, if you've got to adapt to the site, you've got to adapt to the people there. And I think maybe Swindon CQB is a good example of how I had to adapt my usual rage at people not taking the hits, because it happened a lot, and the marshal said, "Don't come complaining to us." So I had no real outlet, so I just had to grin and bear it. At the time,
that's where a high rate of fire would actually come in useful.
That is true.
Yeah. I think maybe we should hear from Stitch on some of this, because you know we've kind of really over there on Stitch. Excuse me, dog.
Stitch.
No, that's Hunter trying to play with Maverick, and Maverick's like, "No, I want to sit at my dad's feet."
All right, come on, Stitch. Let's hear your 10 cents on rate of fire. What's your thoughts?
Well.
And that was Stitch, everybody.
Hi!
He makes a good point.
Yes, it's very valid. Go on. Sorry, you may continue.
The whole speed stuff, it kind of just annoys me. Because, again, I'm on your side with the whole, if you've missed the 3 shots, there's no point carrying on. At the end of the day, they've moved on, they've buggered off. What more can you do? At that point, they've had the chance, they've seen where the bullets are landing, they've had the chance to fly off. So, at the end of the day, just keep going the way you were going. And on terms of the drum mag, they're just fun. I'm going to be honest. I do love a good drum mag now and again.
Drum mags are very fun, and I'm not opposed to drum mags, but it's I think the play styles do need to adapt slightly to the site and to the people you're playing with.
100%.
If you're there for a regular day, then you know you've got like when we were at Halo Mill, it's like me and Bambi were like basically 2 of like the most experienced players there. It was a good 80% of the people there were rentals on the day. Yeah. And I've got to say, you know, it was a really good day, and the rentals all had a good time. I think there was one slight how to do, but that was just down to obviously a slight misunderstanding, and that was all sorted out instantly.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't very many regulars there as well. So I mean, the one guy who kept jumping between the teams, he was shit out on the site. He knew like the back of his hand. Those was a good player.
Well, yeah, he was another regular there.
And there was a couple of rentals on there that you couldn't tell were rentals because they were actually pretty damn good. To be honest. So
that one guy that bang killed us so often.
The guy with the blue, the two-tone blue riff.
This was his first time playing. I was like,
what, you bastard?
And he bang killed us about 4 or 5 times each. I felt so guilty when I lit him up. I did go and apologise because I said, look, I'm going to take a 50-50 on that because it was unfair of me to light you up after you bang killed, you know.
Well, to be fair, it was I think it was my fault that because we were playing the battle sim thing, you know, the wounded thing, and he banged me and I went, oh, that's my right arm as a joke, but I didn't know you were behind me. So he went bang and then you shot him.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably more my fault, to be honest. But
the worst thing I did on that day was accidentally I hit someone with my Oshi boom as it rolled off the tip of my fingers a bit too high.
You monster!
The guy was super cool about it. He was really okay. He was dogs, be quiet. Yeah, he was really cool about it. I went up to him and apologised afterwards. I said it was not meant to do that. It was just a messed up throw, and he said it's a perfectly cool dude, you know. I said, look, I'm going to go back to my respawn because I wanted to come to apologise, and there's no point me going back to where I was sat. And he said, yeah, it's all cool. I went to the marshal, explained to the marshal what had happened. I said I'd happily go sit out because it's behaviour unbecoming, you know, unsportsmanlike conduct. And the marshal said, look, if you sort it with the player, it's all fine. Just go back respawn like you said and crack on. Everything's cool.
You animal.
Yes, and the animals in the background as well.
Yeah, I'm a dinosaur.
Yeah, he's a dinosaur. All right, guys. Anyone got any more final points on FPS, Joules, or Rate of Fire before we call it a
Rate
day?
of Fire. I mean, as long as I suppose if you got high rate of fire and you've been out, you spent money on it, or just be responsible with it. Just make sure you're not capping youngsters at point blank and mag dumping them.
Yeah.
Unless they're little assholes, maybe. I don't know. I mean, don't take that as gospel, guys. Don't take that as.
You hit here, folks. Gridlock improves of mag dumping.
Just because you've spent the money and made that sometimes huge investment on increasing your rate of fire doesn't entitle you to the kills. So if you get hit, take the hit.
True.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
This harks back to me saying, is it down to the weapon or possibly their lack of skill? It's they've gone out and they've done all these upgrades and that. Yeah, as Stitcher said, it doesn't entitle them to the kill. I mean, there have been plenty of times that I personally have thought I will have hit someone. This is another reason why I use my ACOG a lot in the field, so I can actually see where the rounds are landing, because I make sure that my range is enough that my ACOG can spot and be zeroed.
Oh yeah, the amount of times you have people arguing with you, oh I hit him, such and such, but if you don't look properly, you don't always know.
This is true. You could argue till the cows come home if oh, I hit him, and the rounds could be landing at the feet. I mean, that is. I personally, in the last couple of years since coming back into Airsoft, that's how I kind of see it now. It's like, all right then, look, unless I actually see those rounds bouncing off and through my scope, I'm not gonna go and go, oh, I got him. Yeah. Unless I'm like point blank, like turning a corner at a certain event that we were at recently, Bambi, and exchanging shots, and the guy going, "You missed me." I'm sorry, mate, but I've just put 2 into you and saw me BBs bounce off and hit me as well.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from on that one. We won't mention the event. All right, guys. I believe that is us done. I think it's given me a couple of ideas for our next topic. I think hope we'll just have a quick chat on how everyone is doing with the lockdown, because I think you want to have a quick chat about that, didn't you, Grimlock, at the end? And
yeah, Stitch has got it right. I think with this lockdown and a lot of people not being able to play, the one thing I want to put out there is don't get overly stupid with it, guys. I mean, a lot of us will go into our gardens and have a plink, but not all of us are going to have neighbours who are going to be that understanding. Mm-hmm. It's let's not throw any shade on the sport that's already there. I mean, I plan on having a plink in the garden at some point, but to be honest, I'll probably be plinking from my hallway out through the back doors.
Just make sure Hunter doesn't get in the way.
Oh God!
Let's put the dogs in the cage.
Yeah, Hunter, do you want to get shot? No, all right, then I won't do it. I wouldn't do that anyway. And then again, the cat took a few rounds one day.
Oh yeah, what are we saying that?
No, I was putting me round, she firing, and she darts straight across the line of fire. 3 rounds hit her. She stops dead and stares at me like, "You're dead." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" No flinch, no nothing like that. And I'm like,
"Uh-oh,
shit." Is the cat? I'm like, "Is the cat okay?" Why was the cat here?
Do you know when your food tasted a bit funny that night?
Yeah. That wasn't oatmeal in your cereal. That was a litter tray.
Right. That was why it was a bit spicy.
You didn't explain the arcs of fire to your oppo, so really, it's your tactics at fault.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'd ordered everyone to stay behind me, behind me on the range.
Your round, your responsibility.
Mittens didn't quite get the message. Well, I think the cat deserved it.
Yeah.
Well, she was being a bit of a pain in the ass as well at the time, so I don't feel as guilty as I should. But
the
cat's fine.
Because I've got some ideal moving targets here.
No, we are not condoning any form of animal abuse using airsoft.
Do not shoot your animals. It was a 100% accident, and I felt so bad. And yeah, she was my mate again.
These are sentinel living beings that we bring into our home and we love. Even if you don't have any pets, you're going to appreciate, a decent dog or cat or a goat, whatever people are keeping as pets.
Well,
yeah,
whatever
you know,
your section's doing on your freaking base, Rick, we don't want to know what you're doing.
I've got 3 dogs, 2 cats. Apparently, I've got a girlfriend and some kids in the house as well somewhere. I actually got to meet them for the first time during this lockdown. They're quite nice people.
Yeah, good. Glad to know. Glad to know. All right, I think that's we're done. We're done. We are done for this particular podcast. Thank you to Friendly Fire, Grimlock, and Stitch for coming along and giving their 10 cents to this. Like I said, I think it's given me a couple of ideas for another topic. Probably something to do along the lines of advice for new players. You know, that type of thing.
That's a good one.
We
need a loadout topic.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Advice for new players.
Grim, you've got far too much. Do the whole show on your own.
Yeah, what kind of kit people enjoy and what you recommend.
Tonight's 6mm podcast is just Grimlock going through all of his rifles and loadouts.
I got this.
Finish in 6 weeks.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. The next podcast will be at the end of April. Topic depending and lockdown depending. We should be aiming for the 25th because that's the last weekend of the month. Thank you to everyone who has joined me today in this podcast. Everyone who watched. Andy, Gareth the Drum Mag, I saw you in the chat, mate. Haven't said anything, but glad you're there. Johnny Scottish, glad you're there as well. That is all us done for the time being. Thank you for everyone joining us, and until next time, take care.
Stay safe.